The size of Warsaw reflects the historical fortunes of the city. From about 1.25 square kilometers in the 17th century, it expanded to 130 square kilometers by 1937, and in the post-war period to 445 square kilometers by 1957. Growth has continued since then. The subdivision into 7 districts reflects centuries-old local names, but Warsaw is now virtually a new creation, with a layout that only partly resembles the historical city. The old and new towns, Nowy Świat Avenue and the city churches and palaces, on the other hand, were carefully reconstructed after the Second World War. The Old Town Marketplace is the true heart of the Old Town, and until the end of the 18th century, it was the heart of all Warsaw. It was laid out at the time the city was founded, at the end of the 13th century. In the middle of the market square, there's a bronze statue of the Mermaid of Warsaw, the emblem of the city. The houses around it represented the Gothic style until the Great Fire of 1607, after which they were rebuilt in late Renaissance style. In 1701, the square was rebuilt by Tilman van Gameren. In the 19th century, during Warsaw's rapid growth, the Old Town lost its importance as the commercial and administrative hub of the city. The 4 sides of this vast square are named after the most famous 18th century Polish parliamentarians. The Old Town Square is the most picturesque place in the capital. Several of the buildings are strikingly beautiful. Following the opening up of the East in 1989, the district quickly re-established itself as a major tourist attraction. It has a wealth of shops and restaurants to potter around in. Castle Square is a visitor's first view of the reconstructed Old Town. It's an impressive site dominated by Zygmunt's Column, which towers above the beautiful Old Town houses. Enclosed between the Old Town and the Royal Castle, Castle Square is steeped in history. Erected in 1644, it's one of Warsaw's most famous landmarks and one of the oldest secular monuments in Northern Europe. The column and statue commemorate King Zygmunt III Warza, Italian architects built the royal castle. The imposing facade, built of brick, is 90 meters long and faces Castle Square. Until today, this mixture of Polish grand gesture, Italian style, and Swedish soberness is clearly visible in the castle structure. At each end of the facade stands a square tower with a bulbous spire, such as those found in Russia. Around the courtyard, attached to the royal castle facade, the building is regarded as an impressive Baroque construction with numerous bas-reliefs over the windows. The Constitution of 1791, Europe's first modern codified national constitution, as well as the second oldest national constitution in the world, was drafted here by the four-year session. The castle was rebuilt in the years 1971 to 1988 as a national monument of Polish history and culture. The castle serves as the museum and is subordinated to the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage. Interiors were meticulously restored, using the preserved ruined fragments and the old documents as examples of the original state. The interior of the castle has been transformed into a museum. Each of the 300 rooms inside the castle has been meticulously recreated to appear in its original configuration, complete with ornate woodwork, furniture and works of art, many of which are originals hidden from the Nazis during the Second World War. Warsaw's mixture of architectural styles reflects the turbulent history of the city and country. During the Second World War, Warsaw was razed to the ground by bombing raids and planned destruction. After liberation, rebuilding began, as in many other communist-ruled cities. Most of the historical buildings were thoroughly reconstructed. However, some of the buildings from the 19th century that had been preserved in reasonably reconstructible form were nonetheless eradicated in the 1950s and 1960s. Warsaw is further divided into 18 boroughs, each known as a dzielnica, a map, each one with its own administrative body. Each of the boroughs includes several neighbourhoods which have no legal or administrative status. Warsaw has two historic districts called Old Town and New Town. The medieval city walls were built during the 14th century and extended further in the 15th century. Forming a double circle around the Stare Miasto district, Warsaw's city walls remain in a remarkable state of repair and even feature a number of fortifications and gateways, such as the Krakowska and the Naomiczka. A particularly prominent stretch is located to one side of Castle Square, Plac Zamkowy, and leads towards the castle itself. Look on the ground of the square for further traces of this structure. Barbican was constructed in 1548 as part of the 1,200-metre-long city wall defences. The Barbican had the form of a three-level semicircular bastion manned by fusiliers. It was 14 metres wide and 15 metres high from the bottom of the moat, which surrounded the city walls, and extended 30 metres from the external walls. It was used in the defence of the city only once, during the Swedish invasion of Poland on the 30th of June 1656, when it had to be recaptured by the Polish army of Polish King Jan Kazimierz from the Swedes. In its reconstruction, bricks were used from historic buildings, demolished in the cities of Nysa and Wrocław. The four-tower Barbican became an anachronism, serving virtually no practical purpose. This was largely a result of the rapid advancement in artillery power. The St. John Cathedral is one of the oldest churches in Warsaw. Although a major church in the Mazzovian Gothic style, completed in the 15th century, St. John's was only upgraded from a parish church to a cathedral in 1798. The cathedral was used in 1764 for the coronation of the last Polish king, Stanislaw II, and for the swearing in of the Sejm, the Polish parliament, after the constitution of 1791. The interior reconstruction design considerably differed from the pre-war cathedral, taking it back in time to its raw Gothic look. There are many chapels, gravestones and epitaphs in the cathedral. The romantic streets are vibrant with numerous shops and restaurants. In the former bourgeois tenement houses, a walk from the Old Town is the most interesting way to visit the streets in Warsaw. The atmosphere created over the centuries, the charming stroll past the numerous churches, and the marvelous residences and palaces offer an amazing journey. Wandering around the small streets of Warsaw, we find the Church of St. Martin's. Dating from the 15th century, St. Martin's Church is a major feature in the Old Town skyline. Later refurbishments gave it a Baroque appearance,